Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. We out here working on our cornhole and our little spy hunter car here, 89 XJS. So good news, California DMV emailed me back and wanted me to pay the transfer for the title fee. And it was, I don't know, $180 or something like that. So it looks like everything's going to be in my name sometime this week. I just mailed the original title back to them. And so I should see my new, fresh California title licensed to me. The registration will be on a non-op. And we'll just continue storing this little car for the foreseeable future. However, since it is an original two-owner car, I am not going to do much to it. I'm just going to fix the Mickey Mouse stuff in here, and then we'll see if we can't get it running. I'm going to go ahead and drain all the fluids out and stuff like that, and then go through and maybe freshen up a couple of hoses. I think the fuel injector lines probably need to be replaced, and the whole kit for this V12 is around $100. So we'll save up for that, and then we'll go ahead and put that in the project budget for this. And we'll just take our time, you know. One of the first most critical things, as you remember, is if you watch the original videos in this series, the locks. I bought this as a non-runner and no keys. However, there were some keys staggered throughout the vehicle. There was some in the glove box, some in the armrest console there and stuff like that, but couldn't get any of them to work. So we started here. We removed the locked cylinder from this fuel door, and you can go back to that video I did on how to do that. And if you have a locking fuel tank cover or door on your car, you'll be able to figure out how to do that. If it's the original, like not the ones with the lever in the car, the push button electronic kind, but the ones with the manual key. So went ahead and got the fuel tank drained, and I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail here in just a minute, but let's jump back up as we're talking to the keys. And come to find out, I did go ahead and remove the ignition cylinder right up underneath the dash there. Pretty involved job. I used a Dremel to get the break-off screws out. And so we have that here. Now, some of the people out there on the other YouTube channels and some of the forums are saying you could remove the backing plate. This sits in the car like this. So it goes into the steering column. This little, it's actually pressed in now, but this is what this little knob right here is actually what sticks into the steering column and prevents the steering. It's a steering lock, so it prevents it from, once you turn the steering wheel so far, it kind of, you know, spring-loaded, ping, right in there. But, yeah, somebody used a screwdriver or something to get this thing going, and, you know, anyway, so there's no hope to get that redone. So I found a original lock cylinder with the same part numbers and everything on it on eBay, believe it or not, on a parts vehicle. So I went ahead and ordered that. It wasn't much money at all. So I'm going to go ahead and get that one. And then what we'll do is we'll take this down to a locksmith and see if they can't rechamber this one with the other lock cylinder that should come right out of there with that. See those that tiny hole right there? And there's one right there. Those basically are just set pins. Pop those out and the lock cylinder comes right out. So we'll use that other lock cylinder, see if somebody can rekey it for the code for this car. And of course the ignition will operate the doors and the ignition, the trunk, the fuel tank. It's kind of like the master key. And then the fuel tank key opens the doors, the fuel tank, and the trunk, but not the ignition. So more on that later. But if you're hearing out there that you can just pop off the backing plate and there's something written in there, in my particular case, that was not, in fact, the case. The other thing is on the bottom of here, see this right here? That is actually 2 pins and a little depressed detent. So when you put your key in, there's a little tiny metal conductor, if you will, and that pushes down on this plastic lever here, this little button, and that causes these two wires to connect, and then you'll be able to turn the key, and of course that turns all of your lights on and everything like that. In that case, that little thing was a little bit worn, so I don't know if somebody used, you know, however they did it, screwdriver, what have you, but I went like this, and all the little tumblers fell out. See these little brass pins right here? So there's no hope for that one. And of course, here's the backing plate that was on there. And ball bearings and stuff like that. It just falls apart. Be careful when you're working on these old cars. You'll touch one thing and then it turns into a nightmare as far as everything else. So over the keys, let's get into the fuel tank. Now, I want to go into something very detailed here because had I not done what I did, I would have had an absolute mess in my garage here. So if you're getting an old car, XJS like this, or something that has the surge tank, the separate tank to kind of keep the bubbles and the waves out of the fuel tank. So this is a sports car, if you will, Grand Tourer. So you fill up the gas tank right here, and it's sloshing around on the road and everything. And if that fuel line went straight in the fuel pump, there's an opportunity for fuel to displace, and then air gets sucked into the line. So you have kind of this pulsing air gas. So what this surge tank does is the fuel goes from the tank down into, via gravity and siphoning, goes down into the surge tank here, and then into the fuel pump. And you can see the fuel pump pickup right there. It's kind of a rusty color, but it is actually clean. And then it goes under the fuel pump and then through the fuel filter and on out. So if you remove the cap on a surge tank, remember high school physics, you're going to have an open siphon and it's going to come down. It's going to come out of the least resistance, not your drain petcock down underneath the car. It's going to come out of here and it's going to fill up and just keep going until all the way until there's no more fuel here. And then it's going to level off right there in that tank. So it's kind of like that old, you know, 2 cups, one on a step and a straw, and you create a siphon. It's going to keep on going until you break that siphon. So word to the wise, luckily I did not do that. I didn't make a mess. However, 15-year-old gas, it wasn't quite varnish, but man, did that stuff stink. Worse than diesel, worse than kerosene. I don't know if it had some of that fuel stabilizer in there, but it was almost a pink color. Not a lot of rust, just typical, you know, like you would find in any gas tank, just this surface kind of rust on the aluminum there. But let me grab a flashlight and I'll show you down in there how our fuel tank looks. Let me get this zoomed in here. And let's see, can you see down in there? Not real bad at all. Not real bad at all. Let me see if I can't get it. Yeah, there's a little bit of fuel left, and you are going to have to raise the front of the vehicle up because this drain line here is not quite on the bottom. So you're going to have about maybe a gallon in there left over. So I'm just letting that off gas right now and just through evaporation make it out. But let's go over to the surge tank and I'll show you down in there. Not real bad at all. Not at all. A little bit of flex in there. I'll get that vacuumed out right down there. See that kind of orangey, rusty color. But nothing that the fuel filter won't take out. The other thing is your drain petcock beneath the car is actually a drain for, you can almost see it down there. See right there. That is your drain petcock. And you just pop off one of these little grommets. It's going to look like that one right there. Okay, and you're going to pop that off underneath the vehicle. It's going to come out the bottom. And then you're going to take a 13/16 long deep well ratchet, get up there and break it loose, and you're going to be able to drink it down. I was able to take it all the way out, and there's 2 little pinholes that are horizontal. It's not a straight down drain petcock like you'd think. So, and that's about it. This is the fuel pump right here. And then of course our fuel filter, I'll get that out. And now our sending unit, come on over here. I'm gonna have to replace the two grommets, the seals that go around the surge tank and also in the fuel tank. But our sending unit, as you can see, is now moving appropriately. What I did with this is I soaked it in a glass with some vinegar, and it took all of the rust off, just about. And then once that was done, I sprayed it off with some water and some WD-40, and so it's nice and coated. This was broken off right here from that little pin. So I think what we're going to be able to do is resurrect this and maybe just solder that back on. And we'll have a nice ground. Now, obviously it's grounded everywhere else, but this is actually what causes the ground from the positive lead, the black, going into the fuel tank. And then of course this raises up or lowers, and you have a pedometer in here, or a rheostat, if you will, a little gauge here that when this moves up this little arm, that's what makes the connections. It tells you your fuel level. It does come apart. You can bend the ears if you want to. I didn't do that. I just stuck a razor blade in here to get the air out, and then left it soaking overnight in the vinegar, and it took pretty much all of the rust off of there. This thing was not even moving. It was seized up and locked. But this morning I went out there and picked it up, and sure enough, it moves. And then of course our favorite stuff in the world, WD-40, and just got our coating on there just to make sure that it's not going to flash rust on it until we get this soldered back on. And yeah, that's about it. Little Mickey Mouse stuff, you know, we'll get our antenna grommet and stuff like that. The main course of action was keys first, get the fuel out. Then we're going to go ahead and purge the fuel lines. We'll put some fresh gas in there. We'll purge the lines. Then we'll go ahead and we'll replace, you know, obviously the fuel pump should be good because it'll be purged all out and get all that crud out of where we disconnected up here on the inlet side of the engine before it gets to the injectors. And then we'll go ahead and change out our fuel filter, and then that'll complete back here, other than, I think it's missing the CD changer. I think there was a CD changer that was back here. I'm not sure what that connector is, but we'll look into more of that. And then that'll wrap up back here. And then we'll jump up into the engine and take off the inlet side fuel line. And I'm sorry, it's covered up. We'll take that off. We'll run that into a bucket. We'll cycle once we get our keys, or we might be able to just put a battery in here and, you know, cause the fuel pump to go ahead and continue a cycle, get fresh gas in the lines, let that purge out into a container, and then we'll go ahead and we'll see what the injector stuff in there. We'll know that we have fresh gas from here all the way up to the engine, and then we'll try to turn it over and we'll see if it'll actually start. If it won't, then we'll get into replacing the fuel lines for the injector nozzle, you know, the repair kit that I talked about earlier being about $100 or something like that. And then from there, then we'll drain the antifreeze and go from there. Like I said, you are going to have to lift the front of the vehicle up, whether you do it on jack stands or if you just take your jack and get up underneath there under the cross member. You need to go up about a foot, maybe not as high as the jack will go, but about a foot off the ground, just so much, maybe about an inch below the front tires. Again, just to drain that fuel out. And it is going to come down that little green line, in my case, from the fuel tank. It's going to go to the surge tank, and then it's going to go through your petcock down there. You may have to take your petcock completely out. Just be careful if you do that. If you've got a lot of fuel up here, it's going to keep on siphoning until there's a plug in it somewhere, either down there, here, or there. All right. And then the other thing, make sure your fuel cap is off over here if you're draining it without taking out the sending unit, because it does need to have a vacuum source to feed your siphon for atmospheric pressure out here. You know, look it up scientifically, right? Go back to high school physics and look at that one. So yeah, we got our little FBI car, a little or CIA little spy hunter car here, a little cornhole, some more money to sink into a car. But she is in immaculate shape, man. I was just walking around out here just looking, and there's little dents like here, but the paint is just absolutely flawless, man. That thing has just been in storage forever. So I got a good grandma quilt and I covered it up. I'm going to go get another one of these and put it over the car, and then we'll put a car cover over it whenever we're all complete. And then we'll just leave it like she is and go from there. There's no leaks or anything under the car. It's not leaking any oil or antifreeze or anything like that. A little bit of gas spilt down here when I was doing the draining. And yes, I was environmentally cautious. I filled up five 5-gallon fuel tanks or fuel gallon cans and took it out to the hazmat recovery at our local landfill. And no charge, no fee. So no more pouring it out in the yard like you did back in the 80s. You can't do that. You don't have your favorite stump in the yard that you try to kill off and pour your oil and gas on that. No more of that. Take it to the landfill or dispose of it properly. Same thing with your oil. Go recycle that appropriately. And obviously the brake fluid and antifreeze. All right. It's dangerous stuff to pets and animals out there, and we want to make sure that we're protecting the environment. All right, folks. So 15 minutes in, there's a little bit of tidbits for you. Again, do not take off your surge tank cap without draining all the fuel out. You are going to still have fuel left in here when you tighten up that petcock down there, because it doesn't drain all of it out. So whether you want to use parts cleaner or fuel, some regular oil gas, or if you want to use some Shop Pro, brake clean here, you can get for about $7 at your favorite AutoZone. Spray it in there and it'll help dissolve some of that water. Or if it doesn't dissolve right away, what it'll do is it prevents flash rust, and it'll help that leftover moisture evaporate in the car, whatever's left in there. So, and I don't know how old that fuel filter is. I mean, this is a 38-year-old car. And if you guys want to go ahead and run the VIN number, I'll go ahead because it is in my name. Now I got... if you're looking for insurance out there on old classic cars, Haggerty Insurance is one of the best ones going. Let's see if we can't give you a VIN here. There you go, right there. SAJNA 5845KC 153936, made in England. So you can go ahead and run that VIN number if you want, and you'll see it's a two-owner car, clean title, original XJ6 V12. With to confirm 142,000 miles-ish or something like that. So that's approximately about 2,800 miles per year over the past 38 years of this car's life. And the wire wheels were an option at the time in 89, and a lot of people opted for that. So the original owner, or maybe the second person that bought it from the Jaguar dealer here in Sacramento, California, they went ahead and opted for those wire wheels, and those are somewhat of a coveted item, as is the rear end and suspension on this car, because it has the internal disc brakes. So they're actually up in here. Remember I was talking about the parking brake in my first walkthrough video? That's actually connected back to your brake rotors and discs aren't on the outside. They're actually inside, and that has to do with a lot of weight savings and stuff like that. Even the newer cars, Maseratis, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, utilize somewhat similar systems. And I've done a lot of reading and research on this car. This is the British equivalent of a V12 Maserati Ferrari back in the day. If you wanted your British English version of a Ferrari, this is the car you got. And of course, this was made famous back. What was that show on TV back then? Law and Crime. L.A. Law. That's what it was. L.A. Law. That was the one they used on that show. And then there's not too many out of that. The entire this XJ's ran, what, 21 years worth of production, and they only made about 150,000 of them. And back then there was pieces of shit because they would always break down or catch on fire. Even now they're pieces of shit. You can pick them up for reasonable price. But it's one of those things, you know. And more of them are getting discarded or taken to the dump or something like that. So pretty soon we might end up with something in several years from now, something that's worth a little bit more than the $2,000 less that I paid for it. So, all right, folks, we'll come back with another video. Again, we got our fuel tank drained and getting all this wrapped up back here in the trunk, and then we'll move forward on the car. We'll get our keys, we'll get our lock cylinder changed out, and we'll go from there. We'll correct all the wiring mess that they did because they were hot wiring this car once they damaged the ignition. And then the person that sold me the car said there was a fuse or a relay over here in this portion of the under the hood that we need to investigate. So we'll go from that. So Mickey Mouse easy stuff first, and then we'll get up there in the OCD, ACD, anxiety creating mess they call the Jaguar V12. All right, folks, thanks so much for watching. We'll talk to you soon.